did not delete my sermon today. I brought 3 computers today just to make sure. I was about to print it, but I go, no, I got it. It's not going to go away. It's still here. I have 27% of battery, and so I think it will last for the half-hour sermon that I have. And people are going crazy. Half hour? What do you mean? Who knows? You don't have to raise your hand if you're Roel or Brian or any of the guys, but of the women and of the older generation, who knows and watches football? No one does. Not very many Filipinos love football. I think football is something that people watch when you're born here or maybe raised here. Maybe you came here at a young age and you go to school here because football is something that we do in school. The first time I came to America, I was sent to Iowa, and every Friday night, football is the only thing that we do there. There's no such thing as Starbucks. There's no such thing as a coffee house. All we had was for 3 towns. All we had was 1 pizza place, 5 churches. There's a lot of churches. 1 pizza place, 5 churches, and football on Friday nights. And we have it. If you guys have seen the Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams, it's like that. Our football field is in the middle of cornfields. And so we would go play football, and every single person who watches football goes to the only pizza place. And so that pizza place is crowded and all that. And so they love football. The whole year I was in Iowa, I did not understand what football was. I used to play in the marching band, so I used to play cymbals, and so we would play in the marching band, but I have no idea how football works. That was many, many years ago, and so now I'm starting to understand it. Sometimes I ask the guys, what does it mean? And especially nowadays, when you watch football nowadays, the TV networks help you out. You see the imaginary line where you have to cross, you have to go 10 yards or whatever it is that they call it. And then, and the cameras are wonderful. So all sorts of angles, and you've got a camera that's flying all over the stadium. So it's wonderful. We haven't had a football team in the city of Los Angeles for the longest time. And now all of a sudden, how many do we have? 2. Wow. 3 years ago, we were having this discussion here at church, like, is a football team ever going to come? And some people said no, some people said yes, and all of a sudden, we've got 2. For those of you who do not know, the Chargers from San Diego moved up to LA, and so they're now here, and the Rams came back to LA from, where'd they come from? St. Louis? St. Louis, so now they're back. 2 weeks ago, I think this was 2 weeks ago, the NFL, or when they say NFL, you guys know just know basketball, I know. But the NFL season training camp started 2 Thursdays ago, and you probably hear a lot of news about signings and about deals that they have for players. And one of those controversial quarterbacks that is still out there, is not being signed yet, is someone named Colin Kaepernick. Used to be with the Niners, and so now he's kind of out there because of the I don't know how to explain it, but you just read about him. But all these things that are happening with him, there's some what is the word? Controversy about his kneeling and his social justice causes and all that. So now no one wants to sign him. It sounds like Tim Tebow not being signed by the NFL, but that's a totally different story. But Kaepernick is not being signed, and then other stories about football where the USC made a USC made a statement. University of Southern California campus made a statement that even though O.J. Simpson is a graduate or an alum of USC, they are not going to allow O.J. Simpson to visit the USC campus. She's not welcome at all over there. And then they're talking about the New England Patriots, who is the reigning Super Bowl champs. And they're saying that it's very possible that they can actually go lose-less, meaning they're going to have a perfect season this coming season. Some people say, man, maybe not. But, it's one of those, huge dynasty that's going on in the football world. So if I ask you this question, What is a quarterback? That's a position in football. And you probably see him as the one who seems to be standing behind the guy with the ball. And, you try to figure out what in the world is he holding. This is right behind, right? Like, what is he holding? He's actually waiting for what? He's waiting for the ball to come, right? The ball to come, and then if you kind of imagine, those of you who've never seen football, kind of imagine as soon as he gets that ball, people kind of go in different places. There's a plan. They just don't kind of go in different places, but there's a plan, and so he's looking for an open person, and then he's looking at the defense and all that. So there's so many things that are going on. There's so many plays that they need to kind of imagine and have to memorize. There was I was watching a documentary before of a football coach and how he has a book of plays in a binder. And so it's huge. And so they can call different plays during that time, because you cannot, once you're in that huddle, you really cannot, the coach cannot come to you and say, this is what you're going to do. So you all listen to the quarterback to know those plays. So in definition, therefore, in modern American football, because the Canadians have their football, and I don't know who else has their football, but in modern American football, the quarterback is usually considered the leader of the offensive team. Okay, and the offensive team, obviously the one who makes the points. And this quarterback is open, and I want you to watch a football game. Those of you who've never seen one or who don't care to watch one, just watch it and look for the guy in the middle. And he's the one talking to everyone. Everyone's listening to him, and then they clap their hands or something, and then they go to their formation. And this quarterback is often responsible for calling the play. Like from that big, huge book they don't have binders anymore, they have iPads now. But they have this huge book of plays where they go, this is what we're going to do. And so the quarterback tells everyone that. And then they go do it. As I was going through just the internet 2-3 weeks ago, and I was looking and I'm going, I want to read stories about the NBA and basketball because that's my favorite sport. I don't play it, I just watch it. And so I go, but that one kind of went to the side because NFL season is on again. And one of the things that I heard someone say is that, how much trust do they put in the quarterback? And somebody said this statement, trust the quarterback who calls the plays. Trust the quarterback who calls the plays. And that kind of stayed with me for a while, and I started thinking football. I started thinking football before. You guys remember Joe Montana? I mean, that's the kind of football that I remember. I remember football in Iowa, where that's the biggest thing that happens on Friday nights. And then I remember trust the quarterback, and try to put that in application in those football games that I've seen. Trust the quarterback who calls the plays. I'm not going to be talking about football forever in this sermon. But I want you to go and imagine the story of Elijah, one of the major prophets during the time of Israel. When Israel was divided into two kingdoms, you've got the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. And Elijah is in that northern kingdom of Israel during the time of King Ahab. So you guys, those of you who've gone through Sunday school, you know the stories. You know King Ahab. That sounds familiar? You guys remember the queen? Who is the wife of Ahab? Jezebel. There you go. Mr. Moa doesn't forget. Jezebel is the wife of King Ahab, and these two have really weird and strong personalities. And so our story today is found in 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1-8. Now, before we read that verse, I want to kind of give you some sort of a background to this. Those of you, once again, you remember the stories of Elijah. One of the greatest stories of Elijah is what? Does anyone know? The most dramatic story of Elijah. I know he runs away from Jezebel, he runs away from King Ahab. What is this great feat that Elijah had during that time? Anyone? In one sentence. The altar? Yes, and that's right. And he was there with all the prophets of Baal. Do you remember that? All the prophets of Baal have been like crying out to their God for a whole day. And they were saying, whoever puts fire into this altar, into this sacrifice, is the real God. And so for a whole day, Elijah's sitting there and going, go ahead, call your gods, go ahead and call whoever you want to call, and call for fire to come down. And nothing is happening. And I'm not going to make you read that, but I'm just going to tell you that story. So nothing is happening. Till finally, I could just see Elijah, if this is the modern Elijah, he looks at his wife and going, you guys done? Because I'm going to do it now. And what does he do? Instead of just calling out to the Lord, he actually pours water all over the altar. And so you're thinking, well, the more it's going to be so hard for that fire to come down and kind of, put fire in that altar if you're going to put water. And so he starts putting water, and he prays to God, and he knew already what was going on. He trusted that God, and he said, Lord, you are the God of Israel. Show these people who is real God. And what happens? Fire comes down into the altar. Not only does fire come down, what does it do? Not only to the offering, because that's in a way easy because, there's fire, but what does it do to the water? It eats up the water. Can you imagine that? Have we ever seen fire that eats up water? That fire is spectacular. And so that's one of the things that, that's one of the things, but it's probably the most dramatic story in the life of Elijah. And so we pick up from when Elijah did that, and so now King Ahab is going to tell his wife, and King Ahab is a bit under the saya. You know what that is? What is that in English? If you have a husband that's a handpeck. I don't know what that means, but handpeck. I don't understand the meaning behind that. But anyway, under the saya is better because I understand that more. You're under the skirt of your wife. That's exactly what it means, under the skirt of your wife. And whatever your wife says, you kind of go and you kind of follow. And so Ahab is kind of like that. And so now, starting from verse 1 of chapter 19, and this is what it says. Ahab told Jezebel, am I there? No. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. I might have a bit, I do. I want to make sure that I had the same translation. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. He told her how Elijah had killed with the sword all the men who spoke for Baal. Then Jezebel sent news to Elijah. Here comes Jezebel. The sultry Jezebel sent news to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and even more if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. So this is a threat. Verse 3. Elijah was afraid. He got up and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba of Judah, he left his servant there. But he himself traveled for a day into the desert. He came and sat down under a juniper tree. There he asked that he might die, saying, It is enough now, O Lord. Take my life. Obviously, he's afraid of Jezebel. For I am not better than my fathers. Verse 5. When he lay down and slept under the juniper tree, an angel touched him. The angel said to him, Get up and eat. Then Elijah looked and saw by his head a loaf of bread made ready on hot stones. That sounds so good right now. And a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. That's something that we do all the time. We eat and then we go back to sleep. The angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, Get up and eat, because this traveling is too hard for you. So he got up and ate and drank, and he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb and the mountain of God. I'm going to stop right there. I know that there's still a story after that, and that's the beauty of reading the Bible with all these wonderful stories. And by the way, they're not stories that are myths or something that is not true. They're actually true stories. And every time I read this, I swear to you, my mind goes back to Israel and goes back to while we were riding the bus and we see the desert and we see, and I try to imagine how Elijah would be walking for a day. And then imagine again how you could get up and eat a loaf of bread and water and last how many days? 40 days without anything else. I cannot last 3 days, 3 hours without anything else. You go to work and by 11 o'clock you're starving. You want to go to lunch. This guy gets up and eats twice with a loaf of bread and water and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God. God told Elijah through his angel, get up and eat. There's bread and water. And by the way, if you read this story again, it's not that Elijah went to sleep, woke up hungry. Okay, if you go back to the story, and sometimes we forget this, and this is actually the part that I want you to pay attention. While he was sleeping, the angel of the Lord came to him twice, right? The angel of the Lord came to him first time, touched him, and said, get up and eat. That's all he said, get up and eat. Not after he slept, not before he slept, but during his sleep. Get up and eat, there's bread and there's water. Okay, remember now Elijah was running away from Jezebel, went to Beersheba, left his servant there, and instead of taking someone with him. And it's always nice to travel by yourself. I was talking to my brother today, and he's like, I don't want to travel by myself. I'm like, you have to start traveling by yourself because you never know if you're ever going to get married. So you're never going to get to travel with someone. And so you kind of need, it's a bit depressing, I know. And we were talking about that at 7 in the morning. It's a bit depressing to understand that, but sometimes you have to do it. But when you're running away from someone, it'd be nice to have someone with you, right? Especially if you have a servant with you. So someone to help you out and kind of carry you, especially if I'm the one traveling, I'll probably need a cane. And so, you need to be traveling with someone, and yet Elijah leaves his servant and says, I'm going to go alone. Went alone. Went under a juniper tree. I have no idea what a juniper tree looks like. I have no idea what a juniper is. But I'm sure you can Google that. Don't Google it right now. Listen to me. But I'm sure you could Google that and look what a juniper tree looks like. But he was basically saying, kill me now, Lord. I don't like that threat that Jezebel made, and I know what she's going to do. So kill me now. I already done. What did he say? I've already done what you've asked me to do. I'm done with this life. In a way, I'm done serving you. And after all that I've done, I'm going to get killed. Well, why don't you just kill me now? I don't want to be killed by Jezebel. Kill me now, Lord. The question is, would Elijah trust the same God who gave him fire, and the same God that's sitting there and making him eat and drink bread and water? In God we trust. What does it mean to trust? What does it mean to be a trustee? Whenever you go into church government, we don't have that board of trustees. But when I was serving in the United Methodist Church, when I was a secretary of their board, they have a board of trustees. And so there's a bunch of, usually men, a bunch of people, at least in that church, usually old men, and usually rich. And so they have these trustees that they put a certain amount of trust on those guys, that they're going to be the ones to take care of the church. Yeah, that's different from a board of directors. But these special people who can afford things and have the money to do this, they entrust the church to them, and physically, really the church. Not really the people, not really the ministries. They know that the ministry is being done by the pastor. That governing the church is being done by the board. But the actual state of the building, because they own the building, and so anything that happens there, maintenance, plumbing, you name it, gardening, and even the little house for the pastor on the side of the church, that's being taken care of by the board of trustees. Whatever decisions they make, kind of goes. And so they put an amount of trust on those men, and hopefully women now. Men and women, to make sure that the physical state of the building is good. There's a certain amount of trust we put on people that maybe we don't know. There's a certain amount of trust that we put on even the vehicles that we purchase. I know that before you purchase your cars, you kind of read the reviews, and you kind of see, what's good or bad. You see who wins the awards of the safest car. You tend not to buy those cars that are not voted safe, maybe. Or sometimes you put, your money and say, where can my money go? And what is the best car that I can trust? Talking about trust, I was reading a story, and this just happened yesterday, I believe, on the 10 freeway in Fontana. Did you guys hear that? Or San Bernardino? This is not part of the sermon, but it's amount of trust that you put. Really, it is. This car was driven by this wife, this mom, and sitting beside her was her mother. Behind her sat her 2 children. You guys know the story? And so they were driving on the 10. It's been very hot, and so the car broke down because it's overheating. And so they go to the side of the freeway. Another truck came. Another person came. A good Samaritan came out of his truck and started to help the women. And so the mom and the mother was there by the engine, and so engine. And so the good Samaritan was there looking at the engine and all that. The 2 kids sat in the back. The wife called her husband and said, come get us or come help us because we broke down. And so the husband was on the way. So they're talking and everything. A drunk driver was coming, driving real fast. And I don't know if you saw the pictures, but you cannot even distinguish where the car is. So the car and the truck of the guy came, and then here comes the drunk driver, smashed into that, killed the good Samaritan, killed the mother, the grandmother basically, half killed the wife. The wife is in serious condition right now at the hospital. Killed the 2 kids in the back of the car. Their car, the Good Samaritan's car, is completely destroyed. And the Nissan truck that was coming, and the guy, the drunk driver, had minor bruises and hurts or whatever. So he's in the hospital for all that. Nothing really important. But when he was asked, he said that, I fell asleep. And then they started looking at his truck, and there were open cans of beer all over the truck. And so he's been drinking, so now they're going to do all that and whatever it is. When you drive on the freeway and when you get off on the side of the freeway, where do you put your trust? You put your trust on everyone else who's barreling down that freeway, and you're saying that, I put my trust in you that you're not going to run over us. I put my trust in you, people. I don't know who you are. But there's a certain amount of trust we put on these things. There's a certain amount of trust we put on the rides at amusement park. The past few months, I've been hearing all these things that happen in rides. I will never go on a ride again. I used to ride all the time, but now I'm like, no, I don't know. The only ride I trust is at Disneyland. I don't know why I trust people there. But everywhere else, what is that called in America? What is that? I have to say Good Morning America. What is that called? Six Flags? That one? I don't trust that. I just don't trust that. I don't know if you people trust that. But there's a certain amount of trust we put on rides at amusement parks or at the fair. Or how about those aerial trams? Going to Palm Springs, there's that aerial tram that you take. I've never taken that. But you take that ride to the top of that mountain. Who trusts those things? What if it falls? What if it doesn't carry my weight? And that's always a problem. Why? I wouldn't trust those things. But you put a certain amount of trust and say, I don't think it will happen to me. It should be safe. Nowadays, it's harder to trust more than ever. In relationships, they say if someone breaks your trust, it will be very difficult to gain it back. Very difficult to repair it, right? They say that a lot. We say that a lot. And so how do we trust the Lord? It's hard enough to trust someone you see, someone you live with, someone you pay to do things for you. How much more someone you do not see? We need to trust Him that He knows our needs even before we ask for it. And where do we get that? We get that from the story of Elijah. Sometimes we just need bread and water, first of all. We think we need a full dinner. But God says, no, all you need is a loaf of bread and some water. When it comes to our family lives, we think bigger is better. Or what I've heard a parent say many years ago to me, I want to give my children what I didn't have before. I want to give my children the stuff that I didn't have before. What a wonderful idea. What a wonderful idea, especially if you were dreaming, when you were young, you were dreaming for wonderful things, and now you go, I want my children to have that. Of course, that's a novel idea, especially if you're one of the children. But is that what they need? Do not base your children's needs on the kind of life you had. Your children have different pressures today. Your children live in a different culture today. Your children was brought up a different upbringing today. We think whenever we get older, we know better. More service, more, if we do this, more of that, we will be better. If we eat better food. Why is it always that? Is it organic? Every time we eat, if we see organic, we put our trust on that and we think that's better. And we decide on things because we trust on things that we see. I've told this story before of a family of 5 driving down the road and it was raining. And I love telling the story, so forgive me if I tell you the story again. And they're on a long distance trip and they noticed, as they were driving, they noticed a couple and their daughter, presumably, walking along the road. So the father who's driving the car stopped the car and asked the couple, "Why are you walking in the rain? Is there anything we can do to help?" The couple who was walking explained that they're on their way to a relative's house next town because their house burned down and they have nothing but the clothes they were wearing. And so the father in the car said, "Well, I wish I could take you, but unfortunately, as you can see, it's me, the car is full. It's only a 5-seater and I've got my 3 kids in the back. I wish I could take you, but unfortunately, as you can see, I have a full load." So what he does is that he pulls out his wallet and takes the only cash he had. And if you're a father with a wife sitting next to you, usually you probably don't have a lot of cash because who has all the cash? The wife has all the cash. So he pulls his wallet and takes the only cash he had and said, "Here, hopefully this will help." The couple were so thankful and everyone went on their own way. The car, with the family, kept driving and these people kept walking. After driving a couple of minutes, the dad stopped the car and turned to his wife and 3 kids in the back and said, "I want you to give me whatever cash you guys have." Now, I don't know about you, but if you're sitting in the car, one of the children, and your dad tells you, "I want you to give me," you're probably going to go, "Why? No." And so, his family looked at him weird, but reluctantly still gave whatever cash they had. The father turned the car around, made a U-turn, and stopped where the couple was, still walking with their child. This story was he rolled down the windows. There's no more rolling down the windows unless you still have a car that has a manual thing like that. But you kind of just push something and the car window went down. And the father asked the couple, "Do you still have the $20? That's all he had. Do you still have the $20 I gave you?" And the man looked confused and it's like, "Why is he taking it back from me?" So he gives it back to the guy. The father took the $20, combined it with everything that he collected from his family, gave it back to the man and his wife and said, "Here, we wanted to give you everything we can." As I said, I love that story. I love telling that story. There's several sermons you can get from that story, and one of them is coming from the viewpoint of the wife and the children in the car. How trusting would you be if you're the wife, or you're one of the children? How trusting would you be if your husband or your dad asks for money to give to someone you do not know, and then turns the car around to give more to some family walking on the road? That's crazy. And by the way, this only happens in rural America because no one does this in California. No one does this even on the harmless-looking Central Avenue in Chino. No one would do this. No one would stop and say, "What do you need? Can I give you $20? You wouldn't do that. But that's the point of trust. We trust the Lord even when we think He doesn't know what He's doing. Because you know what? He knows 100% of what He's doing. It is us who think we know what we're doing. We start getting older, we start getting our diplomas, we start getting more education, we start getting better jobs, and we think we know what we're doing. In fact, we work all the time. And if we ask ourselves, really, do we know more than our boss? And we go, yeah, I do. I know more than my principal. Really, I do. We say that. I know more than my boss. I know more than my supervisor. I've been here forever. He gets paid more. He's young. I'm older than him. I have more experience. I know better. We start trusting ourselves. We start trusting our retirement accounts. We start trusting our investment. We make plans. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be making plans or you shouldn't be keeping a schedule. In fact, you should, so that you'll be here early to church. But what I'm saying is that when we make plans, do we do it with the overriding factor that God can be trusted? And that we can entrust our plans to Him. That whatever He says to us, we should do. That even though He comes driving down the road and asks you, give me back what I've given you, would you give it back to Him? Would you? Trust the quarterback who calls the plays. Life is like a football game. And for those of you who don't know football, maybe it's something that you should watch one of these days. Satan does his best to try to surprise us, and those of you who know football, with blitzes and with trick plays and stunts that he wants to do, all designed to trip us when our defenses are down. Satan looks for weaknesses in our families and attacks there. Satan looks for weaknesses, and he has found many weaknesses in this church and attacks there. Sometimes the weakness is the pastor. Many times the weakness is the pastor. The weakness is the board. The weakness is the members, whoever it is, whatever it is. Sometimes the weakness is the loss of someone. Not everything in life goes as we expected. Certainly there are some short-term setbacks. And at times Satan may seem to be leading in the scoreboard. You start looking at the scoreboard and go, how in the world do we overcome that? But always think that in the game of football, it is never ordered because there's always 4 quarters in the game. His loyal team huddles together every Sunday. And in those huddles, we build unity among our fellow believers. In that huddle, we encourage each other when someone is down and to decide how we will play out the game. When we lose someone, how do we play out the game? We huddle to study God's playbook. Now that thick binder, that's the Bible. That's the Bible where all the plays are. It tells us all we need to know. And then when we break the huddle, remember, they clap, and then they go and start positioning themselves. We know with absolute certainty, 100%, that the victory will be ours. Because God has the final play. Always has the final play. And if you don't remember anything from this sermon today, as I end it, trust the quarterback who calls the plays. Amen? Amen. Let us stand and we're going to pray.